Our guy Yuki was reincarnated as an insanely overpowered demon. He could even take out the Demon Lord himself. However, he couldn't be bothered with him because what if after defeating him, he had to become the next Demon Lord? Just the thought of it was exhausting. Instead, he chose to play the role of a captain in the Demon Lord's army guarding the front gate from the heroes' party. They constantly came to challenge the Demon Lord, and every time, Yuki would wipe the floor with them. He always spared their lives, so they just kept coming back again and again. But eventually, the Demon Lord told him he had no choice but to finish them off. Our boy Yuki really didn't want to because he had accidentally fallen for the priestess in the heroes' party. So he came up with a better idea. He would let the heroes pass so they could take down the Demon Lord for him. In exchange, the priestess would stay behind. Things didn't go according to plan, and Yuki soon had to disguise himself as a human. But hey, he's an extremely powerful demon. So he just kept climbing, non-stop through the challenge rankings of the Adventurers Guild, and he started getting noticed by everyone. Meanwhile, the heroes' party had reached the Demon Lord's castle. They had been preparing for this battle for a very long time, and they finally had a grasp on the Demon Lord's abilities, along with those of his right-hand men. Yuga was their leader, and he shouted for everyone to charge forward. But the heroes were stunned to find that someone was already there waiting. The demon Yuki was here to deliver some bad news to the heroes. They were trying to overthrow the Demon Lord, weren't they? Well, they'd have to get through him first. The warrior Makana tried to take him down, but she was shocked when she realized her opponent could easily send her flying with a flick of his finger model. He mocked her attack for being so weak, and wondered if that was all the hero party could do. The warrior Raven was the next to charge, but Yuki had an answer for her too. He easily dodged her blade, as she swung it wildly and knocked her into a fetal position. Yuga was the group's last hope, so the support mage named Cecilia immediately buffed his power. Yuga used his holy sword to unleash a killing blow, but Yuki was truly a formidable opponent. He used his dark power and easily overwhelmed his enemy's resistance. He wiped out the entire hero party with a wave of his hand. Yuga wondered if this was really the end. As all the heroes lay unconscious, Yuki stood there, unable to hide his disappointment. He began to heal all the heroes, but it was Cecilia who truly caught his attention. He was mesmerized by her beauty, but that fragile moment was shattered when the Demon Lord's other knights arrived. They considered whether they should turn all the heroes to gold or not, but Yuki insisted that they were supposed to leave no trace. So they pointed out that it looked like he was staring at that girl, and they teased him, calling him a pervert. But he retorted, saying he was just trying to think about how to handle the heroes. The knights were confused, as they were clearly ordered to eliminate the hero party. But Yuki wouldn't accept that. Instead, he decided to just carelessly toss them outside. There was a human village nearby, so he told the knights to just leave the heroes there. The knights obeyed the order, but they hoped this small matter wouldn't get them into any trouble. Yuki insisted that they just do as he said. Then he quietly said goodbye to the angelic figure, one he thought he could only meet in his dreams. A month later, Aoki came to have an audience with the Demon Lord. He had heard that the heroes still hadn't learned any lessons, and kept coming here to pick fights like a bunch of young punks. They had tried 13 times and were always defeated by Aoki. Lord Ra-Elki couldn't believe the heroes were defeated so easily, since Aoki was just a nobody. So the other party concluded that the heroes must still be very young and green. Meanwhile, the Demon Lord was still wondering why he didn't just deal with the heroes and get it over with. Aoki then explained that those kids weren't even worth him getting his hands dirty. But the Demon Lord had other plans. If he wouldn't finish them off, then the Demon Lord would assign the task to his subordinates. Aoki knew full well they would just get themselves beaten to a pulp by the heroes, so he told the Demon Lord to just let him handle it himself. He also realized that if he continued to spare the heroes next time, their lives would eventually be in danger anyway. In reality, Aoki is actually very strong, and he just chose not to tell anyone. He could easily defeat the heroes, but they truly have the power to overthrow the Demon Lord. His master was getting very close to achieving the power to rule the entire world, so he declared that he needed to settle things with the heroes once and for all. The next day, the heroes returned, and they were completely certain that this time they would be able to win. The warriors charged forward to attack, but of course they were no match for Yuki. He sent them flying, so Cecilia offered to heal them, while Makana continued to deal with the demon. As usual, Aoki was a tough opponent for her, but he was shocked when this time she actually made a difference. The attack was pretty surprising, but Aoki still managed to dodge it at the last second, so much so that Makana couldn't help but call him a monster. Aoki simply burst out laughing like a madman and declared to the heroes that fighting him was useless. In the end, they would just be swallowed by his darkness again. So Yuga told Cecilia to enhance his power, and she immediately complied. And so the holy sword of Yuga began to unleash his most devastating attack ever. He landed a direct hit on his opponent, However, all the heroes were horrified when Yuki didn't even have a single scratch on him. He was disappointed that they still didn't know their own limits. They couldn't possibly defeat him. If they were so determined to overthrow the Demon King at all costs, then he would have no other choice. The heroes braced themselves for a beating, but they were stunned when Yuki suddenly made an offer. He told the heroes if they were willing to leave the priestess here, he would let the rest of them pass. They wanted to move forward more than anything, but Yuga refused to leave anyone behind. On the other hand, Akana thought they should accept the deal, since they had absolutely no chance of winning. He still firmly refused, but she tried to talk some sense into him. Ioki has had plenty of chances to kill them at any moment, but he never did and always spared them, leaving them a way to retreat. They might as well just accept his offer now. Then, Akana pointed out that they had to choose between a sister and the salvation of the entire world. The answer should have been simple, but Yuga struggled to accept it. Just then, everyone was shocked when Cecilia told them to just agree and that she would be fine. And so Yuga decided to respect her wishes and promised to come back for her after defeating the Demon King. Ioki allowed them to pass, leaving just the two of them. Cecilia could only wonder why he wanted her to stay. He hesitated for so long without saying anything that she immediately misunderstood. He thought he wanted to have his way with her, so she declared that she would fight to the end. She took the initiative and attacked first, but of course it had no effect. Ioki hurriedly told her to just let him explain. He introduced himself by name first, and Cecilia wondered if he was doing that so she would remember his name and hunt him down for revenge in the next life or something. Ioki desperately tried to reason with her. If he really wanted to harm her, he would have done it long ago. Cecilia demanded he tell her what was going on, so he had no choice but to confess that he had fallen in love with her at first sight. Her eyes widened in shock as Ioki begged her to go on a date with him. In any case, she could only apologize. Ioki felt like he was about to turn into the ultimate sad boy, hitting up 1001 spots across the city tonight. Cecilia thought he was just trying to trick her, so she warned him that she wouldn't hold back if he didn't stop. Ioki didn't react in time, so she wondered why he wasn't fighting back. He explained that he had just been rejected by her, so he had nothing left to live for. Even if he continued to live, he could only stay cooped up in his room. He was only allowed to go out to attack human villages and towns, but he was already bored to death of it. Cecilia refused to believe him, because she was certain that all demons were evil. Ioki explained that although he looked like a demon, he was actually reincarnated from another world. So on the inside, he was still human. Because of that, Cecilia wondered why he would serve the Demon King. He was clearly very strong. Ioki confirmed that he could even go toe-to-toe with the Demon King. However, he was pretty sure if he did that, he would be designated as the next Demon King, which would be a total pain. He didn't want that at all. That's why he decided not to challenge the Demon King. As a result, Ioki just holed himself up in his room, day after day, month after month. He had even thought about ending his own miserable life. But right at that moment, Cecilia appeared. It had only been a month since they met, but this was the first time. Ioki felt like he was truly living since becoming a member of the demon race. Cecilia reminded him that he was truly very strong, so if he really had a human heart, then he should use that great power to reach out and help people. She reassured him that it wasn't too late, and she pleaded with him to step out into the world with her. Sometime later, the heroes were joyously celebrating because they had finally defeated the Demon King. He had spread countless horrors among the people with his ambition to rule the world. But now the heroes had put an end to those dark days. Therefore, the king declared that the next 3 days would be a holiday to commemorate the glorious victory outside the kingdom. Ioki was heading toward the capital, the excitement unconcealable on his face, waiting to see Cecilia again. But first he had to break the horn on his head. Everyone in the kingdom was cheering, rooting for the heroes. But Ioki declared that it was all thanks to Cecilia's efforts. Before the scene changes, Ioki, with his new appearance, went to register at the Adventurers Guild. Ioki filled out the forms and was informed he would start at F rank, with the highest rank being S. He would need to complete missions to rank up, and it would probably take about a month to go from F rank to E rank. He couldn't help but notice the staff members' indifference. He continued to instruct Ioki, telling him not to lose his guild card because the replacement procedure was a real hassle. Besides, he was the only one working at the guild today. All the other staff members had taken the day off for the holiday, so he didn't want to get stuck with a mountain of work. The receptionist's name was Kramer, and he wished the newbie good luck. That night, Ioki couldn't help but be pleased that he had earned a decent amount of money on his very first day as an adventurer. It was a pretty smooth start, but he would have to keep leveling up to be able to earn even more. Once he had a stable life, he would be able to confess his feelings to Cecilia again. Nothing could stand in his way, and he declared he would make this love a reality no matter the cost. Sometime later, people began to whisper rumors about a guy who was climbing the ranks at an insanely fast pace. Ioki told Kramer the mission he would be taking that day, and the other man could only wonder why he always came to him. After all, his colleagues were standing right there. But it's just that Ioki was already used to working with him. Besides, he was the fastest and most efficient worker anyway. Just then, Kramer suddenly wondered who the other guy really was. Ioki said he was just a new adventurer. Completely normal, that's all. But Kramer didn't believe him. He pointed out that Ioki had climbed from F rank to D rank in just 1 week, and he wasn't so sure how normal that was. Ioki panicked because he didn't realize that normal people weren't that overpowered, and he worried he had gone too far. He desperately wanted to hide his true identity, so when Kramer stopped questioning him, he was relieved. It seemed this new guy wasn't cheating or doing anything wrong, so the guild staff decided to let it go. Right at that moment, a mysterious person appeared and requested that Kramer cancel the last mission. Ioki was stunned when he realized it was Cecilia, and she was trying hard not to be noticed. Kramer promised he wouldn't tell anyone, and Ioki was moved as it had been a long time since they were able to meet again. Cecilia needed to talk to him, so she told him to come to her house. At the front gate, one of the guards seemed very excited to see Cecilia, but his expression quickly turned to horror when he realized someone else was with her. He immediately demanded to know who Ioki was, because this was clearly the family's carriage, and he'd never seen this person before. Cecilia explained that Ioki was her friend, and then they went inside. She apologized for not meeting him sooner, but Ioki reassured her that it was okay. He'd been busy anyway, enjoying his new life as an adventurer. He was also quite impressed that she was able to find him, but she pointed out that rumors about him were spreading everywhere. Model, look, everyone's paying attention now that the news is out, that some rookie reached D rank in the blink of an eye. This is an unprecedented achievement. Cecilia wished that was all there was to it, but there was something else. Ioki was curious about what it was, and he was stunned when Cecilia suddenly asked him to leave the Adventurers Guild. He didn't understand at all, so she explained the reason. The hero defeated the Demon King, but the threat didn't just disappear along with him. Not completely. Ioki then realized the problem. Right, defeating the Demon King doesn't mean the demon race will just vanish, does it? However, it didn't stop there. Cecilia explained further. Now a series of power struggles will break out among the human nations. There have already been signs of discord, and they're happening with increasing frequency. For example, the hero has received many marriage proposals from other countries, proving that nations are using every resource they can to build up their military strength. Ioki understood. It was clear that the nations wanted to make the hero a pawn in their wars. But what did any of this have to do with him? Cecilia then continued. He had ranked up as an adventurer with unusual speed, and she was afraid that with his current power, he would surely become one of the very few S-rank adventurers in the entire country. But if that scenario were to actually happen, other nations would definitely take notice. If Ioki were recruited by one of them and accidentally used his dark powers, that nation could use him as a stepping stone to conquer the world. He would be seen as an enemy to many nations, and his second life was also being torn up and started over. So Cecilia wanted him to lay low for a while. Ioki understood, but he pointed out that he still had to cover his living expenses. At that point, Cecilia offered to hire him and pay him herself. Unfortunately, she didn't have the funds to hire an S-rank adventurer, so she would try to do everything else within her power. Ioki was still a bit hesitant, so she begged him to agree, for the sake of the kingdom's peace. He was stunned by her determination and just told her not to bow her head to him. He was sure that no one from this country would recruit him anyway, and he would also reject any woman who tried to approach him. He declared that he had no interest in any of them because he only had eyes for Cecilia. She thought this guy was hilarious, while Yuki was horrified because he had just blurted out an old habit from his past life. Cecilia felt relieved that for the time being, Yuki wouldn't be swayed by any other country, so she withdrew her request. He could continue to stay at the Adventurers Guild, but he still had to promise to continue, hiding his identity. Just then, Cecilia's mother, Celia, called them over to talk. Celia apologized for the guard's disrespectful attitude toward Ioki and said she would have Sophia go re-educate him. Ioki didn't think it was such a big deal, but he was stunned to see how serious these women were. Sophia considered how many of the guard's bones she should break, and Celia told her to break as many as she wanted. Celia sent Sophia away and got straight to the point. She wondered if her daughter had told Yuki yet, but Cecilia tried to intervene. But she continued to speak anyway. Apparently, Cecilia had received a great number of marriage proposals, and she had even received a proposal from the hero, who seemed to be completely smitten with her. Yuki couldn't believe his ears because he was sure that the other guy had countless girls lined up chasing after him. He was obviously very popular. So why on earth would he want to get in the way of his love life? Cecilia told him to calm down, and Yuki realized his old self was flaring up once again. She assured him that she had rejected all the proposals, including the one from the hero. Celia could tell that this boy was also in love with her daughter, so she wondered why he didn't just marry her. Yuki was caught completely off guard, but she just wanted to hear his answer. He was still too stunned to speak, and he could see that Cecilia herself was also very flustered. So he explained that he had already confessed his feelings to her, and that she had rejected him, so he didn't want to force her. Right now he was working hard as an adventurer, and once he could properly support himself, he planned to ask for her hand again. This time it was everyone else's turn to be stunned, and Celia felt that she had heard enough. Yuki apologized for refusing her suggestion, but it was simply because he wanted to respect Cecilia's feelings. Just then, he was stunned when she suddenly announced that he had passed her test. She couldn't just let any random guy get close to her daughter, you know? So of course she had to test him a little. She was happy to see that she could trust him, and so she hoped that Yuki could become a good friend to her daughter. Before Yuki, Cecilia had rejected many young men, and he was the only one that she was willing to welcome. Then, Cecilia points out that her mom is quite fond of Yuki. He gets a little embarrassed and shyly says that he wants to call her by her first name, and she immediately agrees. Since they're friends now, she says she'll call him by his name too. Ioki. He never expected things to turn out like this, so right now, he's definitely the happiest person in the world. Sometime later, Ioki is still on a mission for the Adventurers Guild. He's fighting a ferocious monster and easily dodges its attack. After dodging, he engraves an internal sigil and unleashes a devastating lightning strike. The monster is already lying in a heap. This mission would normally take a full week to complete, but Ioki only took a short time out of his day. Suddenly, someone ambushes him, and when he turns around, he can't help but be astonished when he realizes it's his former subordinates. Ioki tries to defend himself, but they don't recognize him in his human form, so they keep attacking. Finally, he has no choice but to reveal himself. "It's me, your beloved former captain," and they immediately start apologizing profusely, sorry for attacking him. They thought he was just some adventurer, and they're thrilled to see he's still alive. He's also relieved to see that they're okay. But then they quickly get angry. They demand to know where Ioki has been all this time. Why is it that right after the Demon King was defeated, he vanished without a trace? His horns and wings have disappeared, and now he looks completely human, so they want a proper explanation. In the end, Ioki has no choice but to confess that he confessed to the priestess from the hero's party, but was rejected, and now he's living the life of an adventurer. And so the humans, he believed that his subordinates, should also live their lives as they pleased. Surprisingly, they all refused, because they wanted to continue following Ioki. They had been loyal to him for a very long time, and at the very least, they wanted to meet the girl he loved. Ioki felt that it wouldn't be a good idea, because this was the human world, and they would have to hide their true forms. They couldn't do that as easily as their captain could, but they assured him they could disguise themselves as humans. Ioki agreed to let them follow, and just hoped they were ready for what was to come. However, it wasn't long before Ioki was getting an earful from Cecilia. His subordinate Happiness was sobbing her heart out, which made Cecilia even more furious. Happiness had to remove her wings to disguise herself as a human, but she vehemently condemned the act of taking away a harpy's wings. Ioki apologized repeatedly, but she wouldn't stop scolding him. The other demons, who remained, were also very impressed by the girl's kindness, so they couldn't help but nod in agreement. The captain's new friend, Cecilia, was amazed by their human disguises, because she hadn't even realized they were demons. The man named Duke reassured her, then explained that his race is called the Headless Knights or Dullahans. Happiness is a harpy, and the little boy named X is an imp. Duke even tried to take off his own head to prove it, but unfortunately, his armor and helmet were fused together. Ioki suddenly noticed that Duke was much more talkative now, and he revealed that he was only quiet before because of the captain. At first, he really hated Ioki, because he was known for being a shut-in who always holed himself up in his room, even when his superiors ordered him to go out, to exterminate humanity. He would still stubbornly defy them. He would get angry and give a warning that they'd better leave before he lost control. He felt that talking to Yuki was exhausting, so he just let him do whatever he wanted. Of course, that kind of behavior was unacceptable for the Demon King in the army. Therefore, Demon King Duke tried to teach Yuki a lesson. Unfortunately, he was the one who ended up getting beaten half to death. So from then on, he started to live a more secluded life. Cecilia, I guess you can see that a lot of things have changed, huh? Because now he is extremely loyal to Ioki, Duke confirmed. All of us are loyal to the captain. But just then he realized Happiness and CX had disappeared. Ioki panicked because the kids couldn't let anyone else discover their true identities. He really hoped they hadn't gone inside the house, so everyone started to look for them. Finally, they found CX with Celia, and she explained that the little boy was exhausted after playing his heart out. Celia had also met Happiness in the garden, and everyone was horrified when she revealed that the child had gone inside the house. Inside, Sophia had Happiness try on a maid's uniform. Soon after, the others quickly arrived, and Sophia introduced Happiness as their new maid. Happiness formally greeted everyone as a new member of the staff, and Ioki couldn't understand why the little girl was getting so into character. Cecilia explained that Happiness was actually Ioki's friend, so Sophia could only apologize for the misunderstanding. Ioki told her to go get changed, but she adamantly refused. She declared that she wanted to work here, so Sophia agreed, and told the girl she could stay in the servants' quarters. After that, everyone said their goodbyes to Happiness, as she began her new life as a maid. They remarked how lucky she was to live in the mansion, but Happiness just wanted to do her best. Just then, Celia suddenly whispered to Yuki. She had a great idea. Besides her work as a nun, Cecilia also had connections with some very important people. She was always busy, and lately she hadn't even had time to rest. Celia would make sure the girl got a day off tomorrow, so she wanted him to take her out to unwind. The next day, Yuki waited for Cecilia, still in a bit of a daze, because their date had been set up by none other than her guardian. At last, Cecilia arrived, and he was stunned to see her in an outfit different from her usual one. He complimented her on her glasses, and she explained they were part of her disguise. If she was recognized as a member of the hero's party, things would get complicated. She didn't want their outing to be disturbed. She also apologized for dragging Yuki into this, but he didn't mind at all, and promised to make it her best day off ever. As they started their walk, Cecilia noticed a bakery, and suggested they come back for tea later. Then she spotted some beautiful flowers, but Yuki couldn't help but think that she herself was the most beautiful flower of all. Afterward, Yuki agreed with her when she said a cat was cute, and he told her the dress she was wearing was truly beautiful while they were shopping. Finally, Cecilia felt her fatigue quickly melting away, and Yuki was thrilled that their date was going so smoothly. Just then, they were spotted by Yuga, who called out to her loudly. Luckily, Makana stopped him, because everyone would freak out if they found out they were actually AIS. The members of the hero party met up, and Yuga explained that they coincidentally were also taking a day off. He asked if Cecilia wanted to join them, but Yuki was giving them a death glare, because this guy didn't even give him the time of day. Cecilia politely declined the invitation, since she was already hanging out with her friend. Only then did Yuga start to notice the other person. Ioki looked strangely familiar, but he quickly dismissed it, thinking his imagination was running wild. Fortunately, Yuga didn't realize the other person was a demon, so he declared that Ioki could come along too and promptly dragged Cecilia away. No one was more annoyed than Makana. This was supposed to be her first date with Yuga after a very long time, and all her efforts had gone down the drain. She hoped the feelings between Ioki and Cecilia would blossom, because then maybe Yuga would be willing to give up on Cecilia. Ioki was shocked that Makana was more pleasant than he'd imagined, but right after that, she threw cold water on him, acting like she didn't expect much of anything from someone with a face as dumb-looking as his. Just then, Ioki remembered that Cecilia had once rejected Yuga's marriage proposal. Clearly, that guy was still hung up on it. But Ioki refused to lose to that so-called hero. Inside the accessory shop, Ioki wanted to buy Cecilia something to thank her for convincing him to step out into the world. Upon seeing this, Yuga immediately said he would buy things for both Cecilia and Makana. Yuki wondered if that guy was trying to compete with him, so he didn't waste any time, and quickly went to find a gift for Cecilia. She seemed to really love the necklace he gave her, but Yuga cut in again to show her the giant hair accessory he had found. It was the most expensive item in the entire store, but Yuki was sure that most expensive isn't always best. Yuga was about to put it on for Cecilia, but Makana quickly scolded him for being an idiot, saying he'd blown their cover. Everyone immediately recognized Cecilia, and noticed Yuga as well. They were all quickly surrounded by fans, so Cecilia told Yuki to find a way for them to escape. Unfortunately, the crowd of fans was too large and too intense, so the heroes got dragged away, leaving Yuki behind. He hurried to find them, but he stopped when he realized that another man was also being swarmed by fans, surrounded. He felt like he'd seen this person before, so the stranger explained who he was. His name was Raven, the former swordsman of the hero party, who had been promoted to captain of the Night Order. Yuki remembered and felt sorry for the guy. Raven was being practically squashed by the fans, pressed in like a sandwich. Yuki suddenly yelled that the other heroes were over there, and the entire crowd of fans rushed off to find them. Yuki got Raven to safety and advised the redhead to wear a disguise next time he went out. Raven suddenly grabbed Yuki's hand, and he couldn't help but feel that the other person's voice sounded strange. Raven's voice wasn't masculine at all, and now Yuki understood why they called him the Silent Swordsman. He reassured him, that other person, don't feel embarrassed about your voice at all, because everyone has a part of themselves that they don't want others to point out. Yuki was also talking about himself, because he really didn't want anyone to know he was actually from the demon tribe. Raven suddenly expressed that he wanted to be friends with Ioki. because the only people who didn't make fun of his voice were his mother and his cousin. Ioki quickly agreed to be his friend, but then he quickly remembered that he had to find Cecilia, and he couldn't find her. He was extremely disappointed, because their first date had just vanished into thin air like that. Cecilia was also looking for him, but she couldn't find him anywhere either and wondered if he had already gone home. Just then she saw a child crying for its mother. First, she healed the boy's wound and then asked where his mother was. The child could only cry and say that his mother had disappeared. Now Cecilia didn't know what to do. Luckily, Ioki appeared just in time and told the boy that he could stop crying now, because Yuki the almighty adventurer would search every nook and cranny to find his mother for him. At first, Cecilia was completely stunned, but right after she grew curious. Why did he have to be so over the top? Ioki explained it was to comfort the child, of course. And just as he'd hoped, the boy finally smiled. They started to look for the kid's mother. But Ioki was worried Cecilia would be recognized again. She didn't really want the day to end just yet, so she said they'd just cross that bridge when they came to it. Meanwhile, Yuga was looking for Cecilia, but Makana told him it was time to go home. Yuga irritably said he was just worried about Cecilia, and then ran off to find her by himself. He was overjoyed when he finally found her, but that's when he realized he had left Makana behind. The next day, Ioki was completely shocked when Celia told him that Celia had collapsed from exhaustion. All the stress that had been building up for so long, combined with the chaos of the previous day, had pushed her past her limits. Ioki blamed himself, but Celia explained that it was just a mild cold, and that it wasn't his fault at all. In fact, he had actually helped Cecilia a lot, and it was Yuga who made things worse. After dragging Cecilia into that mess, he then insisted on taking care of her, which only added more stress to her already exhausted state. In the end, Sophia was forced to make him leave. That girl was the only one, so formidable that even the hero had to surrender. So Ioki could only wonder who on earth she was. Cecilia had told Celia how much Ioki had helped her, so she had no choice but to ask him to visit her. Sophia informed Cecilia that Ioki was here to see her, but she wasn't ready for him to come in yet. She hurriedly told him to wait, while Sophia just told her to put away the teddy bear. When Ioki walked in, he couldn't believe he was actually in Cecilia's room, and she apologized for her current appearance. He apologized, too, for not being able to give her a proper day off. She tried to reassure him, saying it wasn't his fault that she suddenly got sick like this, but it was no use. He already knew she was under a lot of pressure, so he felt that he shouldn't have dragged her all over the place like that. Cecilia then turned the tables and agreed, putting all the blame on Ioki. Her day off really was ruined by him, so as punishment, he would have to make it up to her by taking her out on her next day off. Ioki froze solid when he heard that, because did that mean they could go on a second date? A second one? He started overreacting again and declared that yesterday he had failed, but there will never be a second time. He told her to rest as much as possible in her brilliant cocoon and look forward to the day of her recovery, which isn't far off. From there, she could spend her days counting down, daydreaming about their next outing. He promised that this time she would definitely get to enjoy a wonderful time, something truly luxurious. His little act had actually succeeded in making her laugh, but she was still sick. She started to cough violently, so Sophia immediately rushed in and told Ioki not to make Cecilia's condition any worse. Then he was kicked out. And Happy Need also said goodbye to their former captain. Outside, Ioki ran into Raven, and it seemed Raven had a little favor to ask him. Raven needed some advice, because lately he's been into someone. The girl didn't make fun of his voice at all. She even praised it endlessly and said she was very jealous of him for it. Ioki figured that Raven had found the one for him. Raven agreed, but the problem was he didn't know what to do now. He had never felt this way before, and wasn't exactly the confident type. Yuki snapped him out of it and emphasized that Raven was the whole package. Women loved him, and he was a member of the heroic party that had saved the world. Besides, that girl already complimented him, so what did he have to worry about? He encouraged Raven to just believe in himself and go for it. Raven then thanked Yuki for helping him find his courage again, and now he was ready to confess his feelings. With that said, he walked straight ahead. But Yuki was left wondering, why is that guy heading toward Cecilia's house? And just like that, he quickly panicked when he realized the muse that the other person was talking about was none other than Cecilia. That's all for this episode. If you enjoyed it, everyone, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to wait for the next episode and to support me as well. Thank you all so much.